Thanks for joining us on episode 6 of What Makes It Fun. This week we discuss addictive games and try to pinpoint the magic that makes them so good. But first, I'm Blake Leftwich.
I'm Mike Gooder.
And I'm Matthew Taylor.
All right, so we often talk about addictive games. You know, we say that game is so addictive, but we rarely articulate exactly what makes them addictive. So I thought we would talk about a few games we've been addicted to and try to point out the specifics of what made it addictive. To start us off, how about I ask you guys, what is an addictive game to you?
Well, for me, it's a game that I get hooked on that I basically pick up and will keep playing for hours at a time.
Matt?
It kind of clicks in me when I'm playing a game and I realize that I'm addicted to it. It's just this feeling that as soon as I leave this game, I'm thinking about it. I'm excited to come back to it. I mean, for me, when I'm really addicted to a game, I'm just thinking about it all day.
Okay, so I categorize the addictivity of a game by 2 levels. The first level is the one more time element, which is, you know, you're playing, it's late at night, you should be getting in bed, but you just want to play one more time, just one more time, and you end up playing through the night. And the next level is the truly addictive game. This is a game that's so addictive that not only do you want to never stop playing it, but you can't stop thinking about it even when you're not playing it, which you brought up, Matt. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about some of that first category. Can you guys think of some games that you've played that were just really super addictive that fall into the first category?
I think Pokemon, like just every game in that series, I'm a big fan of, and that's definitely one where you just keep going. It's just like one more battle, and it's not a game that I'm particularly thinking about throughout the day, but when I am playing it, it's really hard to put down.
Can you pinpoint what it was about the game?
Well, obviously, I think it's the RPG elements, the leveling up. Every time I play, even if I don't do particularly well in that battle, I'm gaining experience points for at least one of my Pokemon. And also how quick the battles are in that game. As soon as you finish one, you felt like, wow, that was just 2 minutes, so I can play another. And there's just always something else to do.
Gotcha. So it was really easy to get experience points.
And there's also that discovery element of wanting to find another Pokemon. There's so many Pokemon in the game that you always feel like, maybe if I just run around this field and fight 2 more times, I'm going to stumble across something that I've never seen before. That element is always there.
And, you know, I think that falls into another category of achievements, like these little goals that you can check off a list. And, you know, they could be achievements. They could be collecting every Pokemon. They could be collecting badges. You know, it varies for different games. But the point is there are these finite goals that are always just out of your grasp. So
Absolutely.
all you have to do is a little work to add one more to your list.
Absolutely.
There's a couple of games that brings to mind. I used to play these online multiplayer games. One of them was Minions on Ice, and there was another related game called Minions. And Minions on Ice actually had this sort of leveling system where you actually, as you played, you build up experience and you unlocked additional tanks that you could actually drive. But once actually I maxed out that level, it just really wasn't as engaging because one problem, it was actually, it was competitive. So you're actually playing against all the other players in that game versus the Minions game. They had 2 levels. One was you could actually get in and have access to most of the tanks, and then you could actually pay a premium cost to get access to a couple of additional tank options. But the thing about Minions was that you were actually playing cooperatively. So I really fell in love with that game because of you actually play basically 8 players on a side, and each game has its own sort of story, its own arc to it that just was so enjoyable. So when I think about it, I mean they sort of both were addictive in different ways, but to me, Minions eventually was a much more engaging experience because of that social aspect. And I wish if they'd actually taken that same dynamic and applied to Minions on Ice, that would have been an absolutely spectacular game. I think they actually missed a opportunity there.
But you said you also there was actually a story element that kept you coming back.
Well, the story was generated by the players themselves. I mean, because you're actually going in there playing with players round after round on that in these battles.
Like an interesting story in terms of the outcome, like the strategy that you employed, and I know what you're talking about now. Like the water cooler moments, like, oh, this happened, and then this guy, and I thought I was about to die, but I got this, and I came back, and like that story.
What games fall into this level 1 category for you, Blake?
Well, there's a lot. The first one that comes to mind is Mortal Kombat 2. In that game, when that game first came out, I was really addicted to the coin op, and then we got the actual home versions. But just playing with my friend Steve, I mean, after every match, you just wanted to play again. You just never, ever wanted to stop. But, for that game, it was really interesting. Practicing a combo or fatality until it becomes second nature, okay? And then flawlessly pulling it off in a match. That is a rush.
Yeah.
It always left me wanting more. It was like sinking a three-pointer. It's like you practiced this skill and honed it and actually got good at something, and then you've executed it in a match. It feels so good. And there's another element to fighting games that always keeps me coming back for more, and it's just simply the competition, okay? So something that people don't usually bring up is my first point, the actual feeling of practicing and perfecting a combo, then pulling it off in a match. That'll definitely keep you coming back. And of course, there's just the simple matter of having fun in the competition when it feels like a game of action chess, and the really exciting matches that come down to the last punch. You're often chasing that dragon, trying to get that feeling back too.
Right.
Oh, by the way, there's one game I was addicted to because of what we were talking about earlier. It had a lot of easily attainable achievements, was Burnout Paradise. I was really addicted to that game for a month or so on PSN, and it's a racing game. There's lots of achievements and also little tasks that you can pull off. You could go to any stoplight in that game and engage in some sort of little game, some sort of mini game. Like it could be a race. It could be some sort of trying to beat your best time. There were lots of little games. I don't remember them all now, but those list of achievements or short goals that were you could always attain them with just a little more work. That kept me playing. There are certain games that I get addicted to because they have open-ended gameplay. So they allow you to have a different experience every time you play. And it's not always just a sandbox game. One game that comes to mind is Metal Gear. Metal Gear Solid. I'm always addicted to those games when I'm playing through them. I just want to play them and never stop because the way the levels are designed, the AI of the enemies, you just never know what's going to happen. You may go through one time and just be slaughtering everyone, and you may go through another time and be stealthy and hide and sneak around them and never get detected. So it can be a completely different experience each time. And just exploring what can happen becomes addictive. Same thing for a game, and this is going back a little further. It's called Destruction Derby 2 for PlayStation. This was it was a Destruction Derby game, but it was a racing game. The cool thing about it is your car had different points that could get damaged. So the rear part of your car could get damaged, your tires could get damaged. So as you were racing, you were trying to destroy the other cars to put them out of the race. But what was neat about the game is that you could play it in this crazy way that it wasn't meant to be played. And there was this level that I loved to play with where there was one part of the track that was one lane, and I would wedge my car sideways in that lane and just wait for the rest of the cars to come, and they would just plow through me. They were completely mindless, and it would cause the biggest pile up. And that was absolutely not the way the game was supposed to be played. But I loved breaking the race where it was impossible to get through this pile up I just caused. You couldn't even finish the race. You just had to start the game over. And I found that really addictive.
So you're sort of a virtual griefer then.
Yeah.
NPCs, exactly. I guess, yes.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. If those were actual players, I would definitely be called a griefer. But it was so much fun just to cause this pile up. Have you guys ever played Animal Crossing?
Yes.
So what did you guys find addictive about that one? Because that's something else for me. But I'll let you. What did you guys think of that one?
I played it, but I didn't really find it addicting. Eventually, it seemed like I was getting all these jobs I had to do, and it just felt like I was just having to work for a paycheck. I was like, well, didn't really resonate.
I think that's what ultimately drives everyone away from that game. Is eventually it just starts to feel like a job. In that game, as you expand in the beginning, you can just do a little work and get a lot of payoff. But once you get your house built, and I can't even begin to, for those of you who have never played Animal Crossing, that's a tough one to explain.
Yeah, well, it's a game where you live in a village, you move to this village and do simple tasks like carrying out little jobs, like take this to this person, and you sort of have a little relationship with every villager in your town, and new people move in and they move out, and you just do these little tasks to upgrade your home in this small environment. Yeah,
and once you upgrade your home fully, though, I found that you have to start doing a lot of work to get any return, and that's when I was always turned off.
The problem with that game is that for the first 30 days, and the game uses the real world clock, so you actually, if you log on in the evening, it's evening in game as well. And for the first 30 days of playing that game, I was encountering new things, and I kind of had this sense of awe, like, this guy would wash up ashore one day, and I wanted to run and talk to him and see what he had for me, and I would start farming apples and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed that game for the first 30 days, but you're right, once you kind of complete that final task, and the game does have sort of a finite goal in completing your house. Once you've completed your house, that's what really drives most players, and they will stop playing. But that falls under that level 2 for me. That falls under that level where I played that game, and an hour in, it just clicked in me that, man, I was really enjoying this. And as soon as I turned it off, I mean, that's a game that, frankly, I woke up very early the next morning just so I could have time to play that game. And I have a tough time putting my finger on it, but I think it's those elements we discussed of that sense of discovery and building up your house. It has those RPG elements in upgrading your house, even if it's not upgrading your character.
For me, the reason I went back to that game time and time again, it was work. You know how you stop playing because it's work? Well, I don't know if everyone else experienced this for that game, but at some point, I stop having fun, but I still feel this responsibility to keep things going. So I go and work, and I think that's how Farmville works. The point is, if you stop playing, your things start dying.
Right. It's important to note that in Animal Crossing, because it works with your real-world clock, then if you stay gone too long, weeds start growing. Yeah. So there are these little, kind of negative things to push you back into playing, and that's definitely something it has in common with an experience like Farmville.
Okay, well, let's get into level 2. What are the games that have driven you guys mad? Like you think about them all the time. And I mean, I don't mean now, but you know, when you first got addicted to them. Games I've been addicted to more than anything, I always get over it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always going to. I mean, I've got to the point these days where I acknowledge, even though it feels this way right now, in 2 months, I'll be on to the next thing. But for me, starting out, Tiny Tower. And, I'm saving the best for last, but to start out, Tiny Tower was an experience where you showed me that game, Blake, and I played it, and I got everything going, and I got a few shops set up, and that's a game where... Can you describe that game, Blake?
Well, the goal is to build your tower higher, okay? And you start with a one-level tower, and you have a few people that move into this tower. And then you have the option to build a business in your tower, and you have to use your tenants to perform the tasks and complete the jobs of that business, which makes you more money, which allows you to buy more apartment buildings or businesses that'll bring in more people, and then you assign them more jobs. And one thing that was addicted to me with that game is each person that moved in, you didn't have control over this, but they had their own talents. So I spent a lot of time trying to juggle my guys around to make sure that the one that was best equipped to work in a restaurant, he loved working with food.
Yeah. And there are also dream jobs. Everyone has their basic levels, and then there are these dream jobs where I kind of knew, like, you know, I have 3 citizens who would love to work in a video rental store. And then when you can build the retail category, and you don't know what retail shop's going to pop up. So when you leave the game, and you have to leave the game and wait for the shop to build, once again, it works in real time. When you leave it for 2 or 3 hours and come back to it and find that you have that video rental store, it is a huge moment because you put those people and it's their dream jobs and you feel really accomplished about that. But Tiny Tower, that's a game, and this whole level 2 thing, I'll say this a million times, it falls into that thing where as soon as I put it down, I start thinking about, I'm happy. I start thinking about how much fun I'm going to have once I come back to it. I'm so excited to even think about how much fun I'm going to have coming back to that. That might sound insane, but that's genuinely the way I feel when I'm truly addicted to a game. I can't wait to come back to it.
Right, Tiny Tower is the one that I was really addicted to as well. I mean, the level of polish in that game was pretty remarkable. I mean, you have the little, it was called BitBook, I think was their mini version of Facebook for each of the bitizens in the game. And actually, one thing about that game too, versus a lot of similar games, is it kept you engaged constantly. I mean, a lot of games, you have to build something, you have to wait for it to complete, and they have ways you can actually pay a little extra to make it complete faster. Mm-hmm. But the nice thing about Tiny Tower, though, it actually there's pretty much always something you could do. It actually had the elevator mechanic, so you could always deliver somebody to a different floor, and you had some special guests that would show up in the elevator that if you had a little strategy to, so if you come up to the right floors, you could really move you ahead on those. So there's always something going on. So there was a waiting element that sort of encouraged you to speed up, but it also was something that kept you constantly engaged. I mean, at least for me, those games where you actually have to, a lot of Facebook games are this way too. We actually have to wait for something to occur, or you can pay extra to have it occur now. Those never really appealed to me that much, but Tiny Tower actually kept me engaged.
Right. You've always got that feeling in Tiny Tower, like if I just cycle through a few more people on the elevator, I'm going to get to a construction worker and he's going to take 3 hours off of this build time for my new floor. You always have that feeling of just one more person in the elevator.
Yeah, but didn't you guys stop playing that game for the same reason that I stopped playing Animal Crossing? There were always these jobs in the background, and if you were always playing, it was more beneficial than ever stopping, because if you stopped, they would eventually lose progress.
Well, I'll be interested to hear what Mike says about why he stopped playing, but for me, it was just, it became unmanageable. I got to like 130 floors, and I wasn't really able to put in the time and effort and care into every single citizen that I wanted to. Mm-hmm. So, once that happened, I really just felt overwhelmed, and it was just that responsibility. I just had to push it away.
That was something I was heading towards, but also I started to realize this was taking too much away from other things I wanted to do.
Yeah, that's
so it. I actually just had to delete the game off my phone because of I was enjoying it too much. I need to be enjoying other things.
Wow.
I was so addicted to Tomb Raider when it came out for PlayStation because it had that element where the world was open-ended enough to where you could explore and find all kinds of hidden nooks and crannies. And the actual gameplay was addictive. It was fun to jump up, grab on, pull yourself up, or do a running jump. Everything about that game, even just the gameplay itself, was really addictive. But the exploration element and the way that the game was open-ended enough to where you felt like there were lots of different things you could do in the world. I was so addicted that it was one of those games where when I stopped playing, I was looking around, and when I looked at buildings outside, I would think, oh, I could climb up there. Like I would think in reality that I could do what she could do in the game. I was seeing heights of buildings and thinking about how Lara Croft would scale that building.
Yeah, I mean, I think always a great game mechanic, if it's truly great and truly feels like your, input into the game is just 1-to-1, that can always be addicting.
Yeah, it's that tactile thing I was talking about with fighting games where it's a complex enough control scheme that when you master it, you really feel like you've accomplished something. And when you start pulling it off second nature, it feels really satisfying.
Yeah.
Like you've learned a skill and you're using it.
One more game I'll bring up in my level 2 is just The Sims. And admittedly, I haven't played recent entries in that series, but I think when The Sims came out, obviously it broke a lot of records, and I've met a lot of people who had never played games other than The Sims. It was one of those games like we think Farmville is now. And that was a game, just couldn't put down. It's also a game where a lot of people play it a lot of different ways. It's a game, right. It's a life simulation game, and a lot of people will play it very realistically. Some people are going to cheat and, put unlimited money and just build for as long as they want and build this elaborate mansion that they've always wanted. And some people are going to really, start at the bottom with whatever money the game gives them and work their way to the top through jobs. But that's a game I think anyone would acknowledge as addictive.
Well, you want to talk about the big one, Matt?
Well, I mean, this is a big one because it's the one I'm into right now, and it's the one while recording this podcast I want to get back to, and that's Minecraft. I've only been playing this game for about 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know how to describe it, Blake. I know you're into it too, but it's just one of those games that had that feeling. Blake, would you take a moment and try and describe that game as well? I'm having a tough time.
Well, the whole world is made of blocks, and you can either destroy a block or create a block. And that's pretty much the root of the game. When you destroy a block, it usually yields some sort of resource that you can use to create another block. So if I chop some wood out of a tree, I have wood that I can use to build a house with.
So ultimately, it's a game about, terraforming, like breaking down blocks to put them somewhere else in a manner that's more to your liking.
That's the ultimate level of creativity, that you can terraform everything. There's nothing that you can't destroy and shape any way you want.
Yeah.
And I think another layer of that game is mixing elements. You can do things like, if you put a piece of wood on what they call a crafting table, you can turn it into, I can't remember what it's called exactly, like a wooden box. And then you can stack 2 of those wooden boxes on top of each other on the crafting table, and it turns into a stick. And you could use a stick to make a torch or to make a sign. So you get to have a lot of fun creatively putting things together and seeing what comes out.
And it's a great game. Blake, I know you had this experience where there's so many different ways to play it and so many different layers of it that for the first, 4 or 5 hours, really, I was just intent on building my house, getting as many resources as I needed to, and then building a house that I felt comfortable in. And then after that, you can go out and adventure and find new resources, or, you can branch out into farming and lure some animals back to your house with wheat and fence them in. And there are so many different ways to play that game. It's such a great thing that you can adventure when you want to, and you can just, lazily stay around your house and improve it when you want to. There are a lot of different ways to play that game, and that definitely contributes to its addictiveness.
But, I think if you're listening to this and you've never played this game, you probably think this is a really complex game, but it's not. It has these very simple rules and lets you do whatever you want within these rules.
Yeah, and it also lets you do them at your own speed. Like I said, if you never wanted to stop building your house, then all you've got to do is, when it comes nighttime, go into your house, sleep, and the monsters will come and go, and you're safe. And then you can go out there and keep building. You can take everything in the game at your own speed.
Right. Like you said, this is what happened to me too. My experience was I was really addicted to building my house because I was like, wow, I can destroy and create anything and shape this world any way I want it. So I spent a lot of time building what I considered the perfect house, but I didn't even finish it because I kind of got over that aspect. And then I was like, well, now I want to kind of explore this world and see what's out there. And I started just going on a journey and ended up, in some crazy location. I had no way to get back home. I was lost. It was really cool because the world is expansive, a huge world. And then I tried that, and that was kind of a failure. So I figured out a way to get into find monsters to kill. So I kind of became a monster hunter and started hunting down monsters so I could get resources that way, instead of being this peaceful person who was just building a house. So it really is like a completely different game, but it's very simple. There's a lot of elegance to its simplicity.
So are both of you playing this on the same platform? As Matt, you're saying you're playing the Xbox.
Well, I started on the Xbox, and then I moved to the PC just because I had a few friends who were playing on the PC, and Blake got it on the PC shortly after I showed it to him on the Xbox. And, that's
We're
another
playing
thing.
on the same server.
Yeah, where we play on the same server. So the server, it's up constantly. So that's where the world is. And no matter what I do, whatever computer I log in from, I play on that server, and all my stuff's there, and my character is there. So it's another really great aspect of that game is that, Blake can be playing at 2 o'clock, and then I'll come in at 4 o'clock, and maybe he's not on the server, but I can go to his house and look at and see all the cool things he's done. So it absolutely has a social aspect as well, and you can play together at the same time, of course, and go out and adventure, and that social aspect. I mean, it's just that game. I can't help but just feel like it's a perfect storm of everything that could make a game addictive coming together, and I really feel like it's the experience I've been most addicted to in my entire life.
Wow, sounds like something I should give a try, or maybe not.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a dangerous thing, but at the same time I'm very satisfied. At the same time, when I quit it, and I don't mean to make this sound like the greatest game on earth, but I really do enjoy it. But when I quit it, I don't feel like I didn't just do anything. Like I feel satisfied that I just did that, and I can move on and, go about my day. But it's certainly a game that without restraint, you could sink too much time into.
Yeah, with me, after I'd played it a couple of days, I seriously thought, maybe I should stop playing this game. Like I could feel that this was like the most addictive experience I'd ever had. And I was like, I don't have the time to sink this many hours into this game. I just can't. But then, obviously I gave in and played it, but I just controlled, how much I want to play. But something that this game does, and I don't know if this is true for everyone, but this is going to sound terrible, but I think that the game, you can play for hours and hours and hours and feel like you didn't accomplish anything. And as soon as you stop playing, you feel like, oh man, I didn't even get this done. I could do this. I want to do this. I want to build this. And you think of all these things, and you're not even playing the game, and you're thinking, well, what if I add these two things, or what if, to make something else, or what if I do this? And something about the game is you never really feel like you've accomplished anything. I mean, you can spend hours on the game and you feel like you haven't really scratched the surface, and you want to get back to finish the job, but there's no job to finish.
Yeah, I feel safe with that estimate I said earlier, which for a pretty simple house, to make it ideal for your taste, it's probably going to take you 4, 5, 6 hours, which, that right there should indicate to you that a small portion of the game already takes 7 hours. So it definitely has that. But at the same time, when I first started playing it, or I saw a friend play it, I just thought, this is a game where someone who is really creative within this realm was going to have a ton of fun with. But maybe that person isn't me. Maybe I'm not the person who's going to jump into this game and immediately have an idea of, I'm going to build a castle over here. I'm going to build the Great Wall of China over here. But in reality, something happens when you start playing the game and you look at this vast open space. Your brain just starts going to work about, I'd like to build a house here, and hey, my friend's got a garden. I should build a garden over here so I can harvest some wheat and start making bread. And your brain is just constantly going. So I think it's less that you don't get stuff done in the game. I think, I typically accomplish whatever goal I had that moment when I was playing, whether or not it's build a garden, whatever. I accomplish that. It's just that by the time I'm finished with that garden, I already have 10 other projects that I want to do. So you're right. It can give you that feeling, but I think it's kind of a backdoor to that feeling, even though you actually accomplish what you were trying to do.
Well, I think we should wrap this up because we're becoming the Minecraft podcast.
I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'm so addicted I could talk about it too. But, one thing that we didn't mention in this podcast, and this is the thought I want to leave you with, is we didn't talk about the negative things. There's a lot of stories out there about people who have problems with gaming addiction, but, I think there's a lot of positive things. So, I mean, a good game is addictive. And if you're not a loser, there's no way I can positively say this. Maybe I shouldn't do this. I was going to say, if you're a healthy individual, it's just there to enjoy and have a great time. I think a game being addictive is the outcome of good game design. And if you're responsible, then you can have a great time with an awesome game, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I mean, I guess you can compare it to the same way food is addictive. You can have something that tastes fantastic and you want to keep eating it, but at some point you've got to stop because it's not good for you.
Oh, you only eat one sleeve of Oreos, not both sleeves.
Yeah, that's how I live my
life. Me too. Okay, well, that's it for this week. If you'd like to join in this discussion and more, visit us at whatmakesitfun.com. And don't forget to like us on Facebook. For the latest updates, follow us on Twitter at whatmakesitfun and drop us an email at mail@whatmakesitfun.com.
And as always, you can call us and leave us a message. We'll play it on the air at 331-222-WMIF. If you want to talk about this topic, if whatever else is on your mind, just give us a call there and we'll listen.
Your gaming addiction hotline.
Thanks for listening.
Have a great week.
And if you want to throw to me for anything, I think I've got all the information.
That's it for this week.
No. Okay, don't say it in such a weird voice. Okay.
That's it.
You just try to make my life as editor hell on earth, boy.
I'm going to say something that there's no way that you can leave it in.
Just use the closer from last week. That way.
That's what I'll have to do.
That's a good